Wait, before you instantly dislike this video because you have a burning hatred for UCP, at least hear me out to the end and then make your decision. In this video, I'll be making the case that not only is UCP the best do-it-all universal camo, but it's actually pretty darn effective in all environments. I say UCP and not ACU because UCP actually stands for Universal Camouflage Pattern, while ACU just stands for Army Combat Uniform. For example, they make ACUs in Multicam/OCP. First, to understand how camouflage works and the different ways it has to interact with the environment. Camouflage is meant to disrupt your outline, making it harder for the enemy to detect and aim at you. It's not supposed to turn you into a bush so that you can just stand right in front of the enemy and they won't spot you. There are three main ways we detect other people. The first and most important method is movement. You can wear a freaking ghillie suit, and if you start running around, I guarantee you'll be spotted. In fact, I even saw a guy running around in a ghillie suit in a dense and dark forest, and he was just a giant blob, very easy to spot. The second factor is shape, not color. If you see a random off-colored gray blob, for example, in the distance, your brain has no reason to believe that it's a person, but add legs, arms, and most importantly, a head, and it becomes instantly recognizable as a human. The reason ghillie suits are so effective is because they disguise the human outline, making it harder to distinguish if you're actually a person or not. The last factor, as I mentioned, is color. As long as it isn't like neon orange or neon yellow or something. Although it is the last factor, it still is important. I mean, if you wear a desert ghillie suit in the middle of a grass field, you're going to attract some attention. Color is also the least important because for the most part, it doesn't attract much attention unless you're kind of looking directly at the object or in the general vicinity of the off-color object. In this picture here, you can see the Woodland Marpat on the right outlines very badly. However, I consider that a fail in the shape, not the color, because up close, the Woodland Marpat actually blends in a lot better than the UCP, which doesn't color match the ground very well. Another reason I wouldn't consider color as important is because one time I hid in my friend's rather small backyard using UCP, and I went up a tree. Now, I didn't color match the tree, so if you had looked kind of, directly at the tree, you would have noticed, oh wow, he's hiding there. But he wasn't expecting me to hide there, so he didn't move his eyes exactly to that location, so he wasn't able to find me. Now on to the different environments that a universal camo has to blend in with. These would be, the obvious: woodland, desert, urban, snowy, rocky/mountainous. And then there's also plains/open fields, NVG, and night, if you want to call those environments. Also, how camo interacts with these environments. What you see at 20 meters is not what you see at 200 meters. In my opinion, universal camo must blend in with snowy, rocky, and urban because of some concealment techniques. For example, you can't throw some rocks on yourself and turn gray to match the rocks. You can't do a snow angel and turn white to match the snow. You can't rub some concrete on yourself to match the gray of the city streets. However, in a desert environment, you often soak up the natural dirt, matching pretty much whatever color the desert is. And in a woodland environment, not only can you conceal yourself by putting foliage on your helmet or hat, which is the most important part of your body to be camouflaged, but the sheer abundance of natural visual cover makes camouflage in a woodland environment usually the least important. Quickly, before I go into each specific biome, a reason UCP is such a light shade is because, first of all, you can always make something light appear darker, by hiding in the shadows or soaking up the natural dirt, but for the most part, not vice versa. However, the main reason it's so light is so it doesn't outline at long range. You can color match the ground near perfectly, but if you're just a little too dark, or if the sun's at your back, then you're just going to outline like nobody's business. Even when UCP doesn't color match, which, let's admit it is most of the time, the gray nature of it processes as kind of background noise in your brain, most notably at long range, another advantage on top of it not outlining for long range. Note I'll be comparing a UCP to Multicam from now on, apparently the best camo ever. First to urban. No doubt UCP is pretty much the best urban camo. Even hardcore UCP haters acknowledge that. Same with rocky. Lots of UCP haters refer to this as gravel pit. No doubt the tan/green of Multicam pretty much completely fails in these colorless environments. And Multicam doesn't have any such gray out effect for long range. Next, snow. Many don't realize UCP is pretty good in the snow. With no greenery, a light background, and near dead gray trees, UCP does excel in the snow. It is the only multi-purpose camo, in my opinion, that stands a chance in a snowy biome due to its light shade. Again, note how Multicam pretty much fails. UCP matches many arid/desert environments very well, especially the ones on the more dead side. The more vibrant the color of the sand, the less it matches. However, a few days should allow you to adequately soak up the dirt. If you play airsoft, for example, you can just, manually rub dirt into your uniform. Multicam is the best in arid environments with lots of half-dead shrubbery. However, in pure desert and more gray deserts, Multicam fails again, appearing too dark and almost green. On to Woodland, by far the weakest element of UCP. Now, in some woodland environments, definitely UCP works great, especially in the shade away from direct sunlight. But for the majority, it appears too light and way off color. Consider how the majority of woodland engagements are at close range, less than 50 meters. The long-range graying out advantage of UCP can't come into effect. At short range, movement will always give you away, along with being exposed with no cover between you and your target. Therefore, the only way to really stay hidden in a woodland environment is stay behind cover. Now the enemies can't see you. The only problem is you can't see your enemies. But your two options are to poke your head and gun out to fire at the enemy, or go in a prone position go in a prone position away from cover to minimize your silhouette. Now you're thinking, well, that doesn't help. Once you poke out, UCP will just instantly give you away. Well, remember those useless slits/loops in your helmet cover/boonie hat? Yeah, not so useless now. Putting foliage in them makes your head more camouflaged than even environment-specific camo. In both hiding situations, only your head is shown. The natural foliage blends in perfectly. You can always loop foliage through the back of your plate carrier male as well for better concealment in the prone. Remember the second factor, shape? Removing the head, the most identifying part of the human silhouette, makes it much harder to spot you, even if you do have the rest of your body in UCP. In green lively woodland, Multicam fails, just as bad as UCP. However, I will admit, in half-dead woodlands, kind of in the fallish, time of the year, again, Multicam shines and comes out on top, where the colorless UCP kind of seems unnatural and stands out a little bit. Also note how UCP seems to change color depending on the light level. With enough shade, UCP can blend into even pretty green and brown woodland environments. This transfers over to night. UCP is the best nighttime camo. It's simple biology. At night, the eye utilizes cones, which can't see color. The pattern and shade of UCP allows it to become near invisible during the night, as the color really doesn't matter. For example, I was standing right in front of my friend in a bush. He was practically breathing on me, and he didn't even see me, even though he was practically staring right at me. A special property of UCP is its superb properties under NVG. Each color appears as a separate shade, unlike Multicam, Marpat, Woodland, etc. It isn't as good as the experimental US4 CES, which is definitely the best nighttime camouflage ever invented under NVG, but as a pattern available to 99.999% of us and not 0.00001% of us, it's the best NVG camo. Digital patterns are also more disruptive. Take Marpat, CADPAT, Japanese digital, forgot what that's called, and so on. It's just much more effective than the old-style woodland, tricolor desert, and so on. It's proven digital patterns are more effective. The digital aspect of UCP makes it much better than if it were non-digital. That being said, I believe the pattern itself could be improved. Here's an image of US4 CES, where I photoshopped to have UCP colors, plus black, which ideally would be a dark gray. This, in my opinion, would be the absolute best universal camouflage. I call it IUCP, Improved Universal Camouflage Pattern. In conclusion, specific patterns will obviously always be better, but as a do-it-all camo, UCP comes out on top, even beating the unbeatable Multicam, in my opinion.
If I change your mind, I'd love to hear about it in the comment sections, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Thanks.